Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, of course, the king of all those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call to find out what's for dinner, 714-948-0100, 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. All right, a big welcome into everybody listening in on all of our television and radio affiliates, everybody streaming as well, everybody on Chicago Food Favorites. Check that out, folks, on Facebook, Chicago Food Favorites, a fun group. Talk about your favorite foods, your favorite restaurants, favorite recipes. Make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right. Good stuff. All right, and right from the top, also our friends over at Vacation Buddies are giving away a couple of nights right here in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or Branson, Missouri. If you know the answer to a very simple trivia question, if so, call the number I give you right after I give you the question and claim your 2 free nights in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or Branson, Missouri. Here's the question. Which of these 3 cities is home to the tallest building in America? Is it A, New York, B, Chicago, or C, Los Angeles? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights right here in Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or Branson, Missouri. If you know the answer to a simple trivia question, if so, call 888-576-5777. Call now. Now, how many of us are those weekend warriors? We get out there and we muck it up a little bit over the weekends and whatnot. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we play a little bit of backyard football, a little bit of street ball, a little bit of basketball, one-on-one, 2s, 3s, running full 5s, whatever. Who knows? Maybe you're out there playing golf. Maybe you're out there bowling, right? Who knows? All of those things. You might even be doing what? Playing some softball or whatever it is. Well, listen, at some point, if you're not in reasonably good condition, if somehow, some way, it's inevitable. It happens, and sometimes we get injured. It's just a way of life. It's just what happens. And look, it happens to everybody. It doesn't matter how great a condition you are. It's just if you're in really good condition, sometimes you can prevent injury, or you're more, I guess you're used to playing through pain or whatnot because it is what it is. But in many cases, people that are the weekend warrior types, they just get out there maybe once a week or whatever, and they go out and do it. Like I play golf, and I'm terrible. And I know I'm terrible. And so sometimes I won't stretch. I won't do the things that I'm supposed to do. I'll just get out there and hack and whack, and I'm out there with Colonel Bucky. And in fact, you'll hear me say it's a circus and we prove it every day. Well, he's the guy that coined that phrase back in 2017 for the Sports Circus. And it was funny how it happened. I'm completely digressing here because I can. And he had never seen a show that was so disorganized. We had no script, no nothing. And we just talked, and that was it. So he had already been inducted to the Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and that's the great Jim Dallas. So, of course, Jim, we'll give you a nice round of applause. He goes by Colonel Bucky. And so he was our producer for the Sports Circus. And early on, when we started with him over on KMZQ right here in Las Vegas, 670 The Score, there's SB Nation. When we started working with him many years ago, he just saw something that he didn't really want to be a part of it. It was so disorganized. He's like, well, yeah, you're a circus and you do prove it every day. And so that actually stuck with us. And he's the guy that first said it's a circus and you prove it every day. So that's where that comes from Broadcasting Hall of Fame member Jim Dallas. The reason I talk about that is, look, disorganization, no practice, no nothing, just getting out there and go doing it. And sports injuries are inevitable, like I said. So here, the National Institute of Arthritis and Musculoskeletal and Skin Diseases, they talk about these sports injuries and so forth and so on. And let's face it, they've got a bevy of information here, and we're going to go ahead and give you some of that because let's face it, you may know some, and likely you don't know some of the other stuff as well. And so, I mean, look, even starting with the term sports injury, like, okay, well, it refers to the kind of injuries that most commonly occur during sports or exercise, right? And I think we're all guilty of trying to do too much too quick. And look, I know this one, and I'm sure you know it as well, but they are not limited to athletes. So factory workers, hey, listen, they get tennis elbow. Painters get shoulder injuries. Gardeners develop tendinitis, even though they may not participate in sports. I mean, look, it happens to everybody. Ultimately, however, sports injuries refer to those that occur in active individuals. So this is health topic focuses on most common types of sports injuries, those that affect the musculoskeletal system. So the musculoskeletal system, in case you don't know, is the network of muscles and tendons and ligaments and bones and other tissues that provides the body with stability and enables movement. Yeah, so this even goes for Mr. You Know, that would be Jerry down in the Covington, Kentucky area. And whether you're mowing lawns or shoveling snow or pulling weeds or whatever, listen, you could be out there and you could trip over something, you could fall and you could mess your shoulder up. Sports injuries, listen, you may be out there doing some regular labor around the yard or twist a joint. Well, chronic injuries usually result from overuse of one area of the body part and develop gradually over time. Examples, of course, of acute injuries are sprains or dislocations, while some chronic injuries are like tennis elbow or stress. And for even you office workers, think about this. Let's say you're pointing and clicking. Well, here's something interesting that you may not know. And now I've seen this one. And so people say, well, you know, I've got that carpal tunnel thing, right? It's from pointing and clicking with a mouse, right? So you have this carpal bone in your hand. And since most people use the mouse with your right hand, I'm left-handed, but I still use it with my right hand. Well, the reality is you get this carpal bone issue. So it's from this weird position that your hand is in, kind of hovered over a mouse. And so most people don't realize that is the overuse of that area. But there is another accompanying injury with this. Now, a lot of you listeners and viewers are going to be able to identify with this because you think about the carpal tunnel thing. I mean, it's unfortunately a big problem. Now, what comes along with that, in many cases that people don't know, is when you get that carpal tunnel surgery, right? That thing to take the pressure off that bone. Well, what normally comes with, I wouldn't say normally, but is common to come with it, is something called a cubital tunnel injury. Now, the cubital deals with the ulnar nerve. Now, everybody listening to this at some point has heard of the old Tommy John surgery. Well, the Tommy John surgery really, as I understand it, is the cubital tunnel, or it's actually that funny bone thing, right? So you hit your elbow, you're like, oh, that hurts, and it kind of twinges, whatnot. So it's the ulnar nerve. So you can, check this out, folks. Put your, on your left hand, put your, maybe a couple of fingers on your elbow. I'm doing it right now. Everybody on TV can see this. I'm putting my left middle finger and ring finger on my elbow. And now what I'm doing is I've turned my wrist over like I'm actually using a mouse. So pointing and clicking kind of thing. And if you just rotate your fingers, move your fingers back and forth, you'll be able to feel that nerve, that funny bone thing in your elbow. So a lot of times, here you are working in an office or at home, maybe you have a home office, and you're like, wow, what in the world? I've got a Tommy John surgery issue? Yeah, that's legit, because that's that cubital tunnel thing in the first place. So you're like, well, how the hell does that happen? Well, it's the overuse of that mouse feature. So get this. When you're throwing a baseball, for example, the pitchers that are out there, I used to be a pitcher. Well, what happens is when you throw a lot of sliders, now act like you have a ball in your hand, a baseball, right? So I got a baseball in my hand right now. And so with that baseball, when you're throwing a slider, you're tweaking your wrist. You're tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it. Well, now put your fingers on the opposite hand on your elbow. So I'm lefty, so I'm putting my right fingers on my elbow where that funny bone thing is. Well, every time I tweak my wrist to throw a slider, for example, I'm overworking that Tommy John area, that whole cubital tunnel thing in the first place. That's how office workers get the same kind of athletic injuries. In case you didn't know, now you know. That's pretty cool stuff. All right, back here with more information here on the Sports Circus. Going to stick with these sports injuries because, hey, it happens to everybody. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come. That's a sports injury.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Check them out, folks. All right, welcome in, everybody. On all of our radio affiliates, everybody waking up with us over in Atlanta. Thanks for joining us on WDJY 99.1 FM. Right down the road, everybody driving home after work and whatnot in the afternoons. Listening in on WAUD, that's home of the Atlanta Braves, right there out of Auburn, Alabama, War Eagle. And that signal stretches from Montgomery all the way out to Columbus, Georgia, up and down the Midwest, out to the West Coast. Everybody driving between sunny Southern California and fabulous Las Vegas, listening in on Highway Country Radio 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM. Also, KNAC Pure Rock 94.9 FM and 96.9 FM up and down the West Coast out to Honolulu, CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the 49ers, Yankees, and Alabama Crimson Tide. Of course, everybody watching at Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Wild Charter, and independent cable affiliates in select markets. Thanks for joining us. Also on Hotel TV, same. And everybody's streaming. And by the way, everybody at Chicago Food Favorites, thanks for coming back with us. Again, everybody's streaming right there on Facebook. That's Chicago Food Favorites. Talk about your favorite foods, your favorite restaurants, favorite recipes. Make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Okay. Back here with this sports injury discussion. This is pretty interesting stuff. And I gave the common non-athlete a way to pin down maybe that idea of, hey, I'm not an athlete, but how did I end up with this Tommy John thing? Well, I mentioned that by the carpal tunnel thing and the cubital tunnel thing and the funny bone thing and all that. And I've got some good information here from the National Institute of Arthritis and Musculoskeletal and Skin Diseases organization. It's pretty good stuff. It's niams.nih.gov. Pretty good stuff here. Now, when you think about these sports injuries, all right, I always said, look, they're divided into a couple of broad categories. And look, there's treatment for sports injuries, right? But what about those office injuries? I mean, how do you treat those? I guess it's maybe you take time off work, you get some workman's compensation, maybe you get a surgery or get physical therapy or something to the effect. The problem is it's chronic. It just never seems to go away unless you do something extreme like have surgery. And surgery is always the last line of defense, folks. You never really want to cut yourself unless you have to. I've been in that rodeo a few times, and it's really not fun. So thinking about the old treatment for a sports injury, I mean, obviously it depends on the type of injury, but many can be treated at home by resting and icing and compression, elevation. That's the old Rice method. And you could really do that by just not overusing the area and let your body heat a little. It's got to heal a little bit. Now, obviously, for those severe injuries, you're going to need to see some kind of a, well, what do they call them today? They're not doctor. You can't say, well, I'm going to go see a doctor. No, you have to say you're going to go see your provider, right? So it's one of those euphemisms for a doctor, I suppose, but whatever. And of course, they may recommend that you take some kind of physical therapy or rehab or who knows, maybe even cast or a splint or a brace or something like that. In some cases, of course, they're going to have to cut you. But some kind of rehab program that includes exercise. That's right. For those that don't want to exercise, you're going to have to get out there and exercise. And other types of therapy is usually recommended before resuming the sports or activity that caused the injury. And that goes for work too, folks. Believe me. That's one of those things that you're just going to have to do. So you can't say, well, only athletes get them, because like I said, everybody seems to get them at some point. But look, anyone can really suffer a sports injury, like I said, but several factors really can increase the risk of sustaining the injury in the first place. And of course, that includes, but not limited to, not using the correct exercise techniques or even overtraining, either by training too often, too frequently, or for too long. And what I did, I remember I found myself really overweight at one point. And I said, I don't feel good about myself, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to build up my pectoral muscles. So what I did, like a genius, what I ended up doing was I said, I'm going to go ahead and do some push-ups. Well, look, the wider you go in your push-ups when your hands are set wider apart, well, it puts a lot of stress on your pectoral muscles, but more importantly, it puts a lot of stress on your shoulders, your rotor cuffs, your labrum, all kinds of stuff. So me, like a blithering idiot, I went and started doing push-ups right away, but I went and did a lot of them, and I went wide. So you put your hands further apart, and you're more susceptible to injury. And yes, I tore my labrum by doing that. And I got to tell you, folks, that's not fun. That is not fun whatsoever. So again, not stretching, not doing, I guess, the right techniques, and really just jumping in too fast and too frequently for your own good. Got to give your body a chance to tear and repair, and you got to do the right thing. And also, if you don't increase the intensity of whatever exercise you're doing, if you're doing too much too quick, so like I was doing way too many push-ups right out the gate, and so instead of taking my time and tearing that area, I just tore it real quickly and really caused myself about a 5-year delay in recovery. It still isn't fully recovered anyway, nonetheless. So you really got to watch out for that whole overtraining idea, and really just, you got to increase your intensity slowly but surely. And so I learned my lesson from that when I said, well, I can't really do that anymore. I'm going to go ahead and start pedaling around the world. So I started going around my block, and it's 0.4 of a mile around the block, just over 0.4 of a mile. So I said, I'll do it once for maybe a week or so, once a day, and then I'll increase it. I increase it, and before you know it, I'm doing about a mile a day, and then 2 miles a day, then 3 miles a day. Now I'm out on the surface streets. I'm going 3 to 5 miles a day. Eventually, where I'm at today is up to about 30 miles a day. That's right, 30 miles a day. And I just started I'm just riding casually. I'm not trying to set the world afire. All I'm doing is riding a nice casual pace, about 10 miles an hour, on a regular road bike. I don't have a racing bike. I have a cheapy bike. It's probably worth about maybe 30 or 40 bucks. And it works. That's all you need, folks. So again, increasing your intensity, and I learned from the wide push-up thing not to overdo it on the bicycle. So think about the idea of playing the same sport year-round, right? You're not going to overdo it. You're not going to just jump into it. You're going to do it for a couple of months, and you're going to go crazy with it, and then you're going to stop. So you got to think about increasing your intensity over time. And another thing, what I also used to do is I used to like to run, and I was running about 4.5, 5 miles a day. Problem is I was running on pavement, which if you're a runner, it's just not what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to be running on those hard surfaces. I was getting terrible, terrible shin splints. I mean, to the point where I could hardly walk. So my point is, even if you're doing something as simple as walking or running, you got to think about the surfaces you're walking or running on. I mean, walking is a little easier because it's less impact, but running is high impact. Bicycling is low impact. Walking is medium to high impact, right? Swimming is no impact. You think of your body weight, when you're floating, you're buoyant, you're in the water, so there's no impact. And so these are the kind of things that you really have to consider too. So maybe you're trying to get yourself out there and do something. Well, let's face it. Maybe you want to walk. Just start walking. And even Colonel Bucky he walks, 3.5 miles a day now. I think he lost about 40 or 50 pounds himself, just like myself. But again, if you don't even have the right shoes on, with the right support, you can really mess things up too. So you even have to have the right equipment. And I'm saying just get a decent pair of shoes that give you arch support, and it gives you some structural support for your feet. Otherwise, you're going to hurt yourself. So that's part of the not wearing the proper equipment stuff. And let's face it, maybe you had a prior injury than if you had a prior injury and you're re-aggravating the injury because you're overdoing it. Well, what you haven't done is taking the right precautions. So you got to think of those certain anatomical features specific to each joint and poor flexibility. So look, flexibility is a really big deal. And even though I ride a lot, I'm not supersonic flexible. I mean, there are certain things I can do that makes me a little bit bendy, but frankly, I'm just not super bendy. But you've got to have some flexibility because that means you're stretching before and after your exercise, whatever you're doing or whatever sport you're playing or whatever the hell it is. The reality is you've got to have some conditioning pre and post. It's kind of like before you go work out at the gym, you're supposed to go get your heart rate up a little bit. And whether that's riding a stationary bicycle for 10, 12 minutes, that's really, in my opinion, you're supposed to ride for about 12 minutes. Get the muscles loosened up, and now you broke a little bit of sweat, and you're ready to get out there and do some kind of weight training or circuit training. And then after you're done with your exercise, then you're on there for another 10 to 12 minutes on your cool down. And so technically you're just stretching out again. So you're stretching before, you're stretching afterwards. That would be, as I see it, that would be the right way to do it. Now you also have to consider the idea of taking certain medications and, I don't know, thinking about those meds. Maybe you're on some meds from your provider, right? That's what they call it nowadays. Maybe you have some kind of antibiotics or whatever linked to tendonitis or tendon ruptures and whatnot. You really got to take into consideration what kind of strain you're putting on your body when you're taking some kind of medications too. And that's something you're going to have to check out with your provider, right? Let's just say that. I mean, look, the type of injury you're most vulnerable to depends on the type of activity you're participating in, your age, and of course, it could be whether you're male or female as well, or any of the other 23 genders or whatever the hell it is. Back here in a few minutes on The Circus. Going to continue with this in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Excellent.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Are you or someone you love struggling with an addiction to drugs or alcohol and want to be set free from the chains of addiction? Then call Addiction Helpline America right now to get the help you need. From drug and alcohol addiction to dual diagnosis treatment, we provide a confidential helpline to help people like you get sober and live happy, substance-free lives.
Treatment helped me get my life back. I was so addicted, the only person I could focus on was myself and what I needed. I hit rock bottom and lost everything. Through treatment, I was able to overcome those demons and focus on my family again.
I used until I overdosed and almost died. That was the end of the road for me. After seeking treatment, I now have hope. I learned skills that help me deal with life on life's terms.
800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. That's 800-426-4994.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Investors, keep listening to learn how to get your free gold report. A currency crisis is upon us. The U.S. dollar has been the world's reserve currency for over 50 years, but that is changing. It's time to protect your retirement. Decades of reckless borrowing and spending have critically weakened the dollar. The U.S. has become the world's biggest debtor with over $35 trillion in debt. Plus, the dollar's become weaponized. Countries are dumping it. Investors who wait until it's too late could lose big. There is one safe haven: gold. Diversify your portfolio with a physical asset they can't take away. Call the Reagan Gold Group right now and ask for your free gold guide. Here's our number:
800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. That's 800-876-7041.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, our prior guests, recorded shows which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, iHeart, Stitcher, Deezer, plus a whole bunch of others. Also, check out the partners page. Lots of great partners at thesportscircus.com. One of those, our favorite from a food side, is Al's Number One, Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. That's Al's Number One, Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Listen, folks, if you can't make it over there for some great food, check them out at alsbeef.com. That's alsbeef.com. Learn all about the Italian beef sandwiches created about 118 years ago. And the same family opened the restaurant, Al's Number One Italian Beef, in 1938. Been serving up great food for a very, very, very long time. And man, is it good. Check them out again at alsbeef.com and tell them the circus sent you. All right. Oh, and by the way, our friends over at Vacation Buddies at the top of the hour, they were giving away a couple of nights right here in Las Vegas or in Orlando, Florida, or Branson, Missouri. If you can answer a simple trivia question, in case you're just tuning in right now, we're going to go ahead and repeat that question for you and give you a shot to pick up your 2 free nights in Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or Branson, Missouri. If you know the answer, call the number I give you right afterwards and claim your 2 free nights. Which of these cities is home to the tallest building in America? Is it A, New York, B, Chicago, or C, Los Angeles? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Now, Vacation Buddies is not affiliated, again, with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights right here in Vegas, Orlando, or Branson. If you know the answer to that simple trivia question, if so, call 888-576-5777. Call now. All right. So sports injuries is sort of the theme of today's show. And listen, it doesn't matter whether you're an athlete or not. Listen, you've had them. I've had them. We've all had them. It doesn't really matter. And so the bigger question is, how do we prevent them? Better yet, let's really define what they are, which we've taken a little bit of time to talk a little bit about some of the different types of things that can happen, whether it's chronic or whether it's acute, whatnot. Now, injuries to the musculoskeletal system is really the central focus of what we're doing here. Now, this is according to the National Institute of Arthritis and Musculoskeletal and Skin Diseases. Listen, folks, you can check it out at niams.nih.gov in case you're thinking that we're full of beans. So the idea of, let's face it, who can get them? Yeah. And I already said you can get it from not wearing the right equipment or not stretching or not doing this, not doing that, whatever. Injuries, of course, whether it's acute or chronic, And back to the injuries to the musculoskeletal system that are common in athletes include fractures, which I recently fractured my femur, believe it or not, and my wrist on the same bicycle accident. It is what it is. Dislocations, sprains, strains, tendonitis, bursitis, and let's face it, bone fractures, which I just mentioned, and it's kind of like a break, but sometimes not really a clean break, right? It's just a quick one-time injury, and that is an acute fracture. It's basically sometimes a partial shattering of a bone, which in many cases is a lot worse than actually having a clean break because it's a nagging thing. It just kind of sticks around. And I got to tell you, there are other things where you get stress fractures, right? Repetitive stress, known as stress fractures. And really, you got growth plate fractures as well. And they're unique really to kids who are still growing. So those are kind of tough. But the acute fractures, of course, that's a fall, a car accident, collision, whatever, bicycle fall, whatever. And the severity, of course, depends on the forces caused on the break in the first place, and the bone may crack, break all the way through, or break into many pieces. That's a shattering thing. And injuries, of course, that break through the skin, I'm just cringing thinking about that, to the bone. Those are known as the open fractures. Those are really serious because, of course, now you've got infection, sepsis, all kinds of bad stuff can happen, and most of those acute fractures require immediate visits to your healthcare provider. Now, the stress fractures, a lot of people talk about it, but they don't really know what those are. I think a lot of people say, well, I got a stress fracture. Really? How do you know? I mean, really, stress fractures occur largely in the weight-bearing bones in the lower extremities. So the femur, like I mentioned that I did, the tibia, fibula, I should say, foot bones, this kind of thing. And they're common in sports where there's repetitive impact. So high impact. Remember I mentioned high impact with running? Primarily running or jumping sports, such as gymnastics, tennis, basketball, track and field. Running creates force and 2 to 3 times a person's body weight. And that's why running on pavement or hard surfaces is really rough on the joints and rough on the bones, especially the lower limbs. Now, those growth plate fractures that I mentioned for kids, that's, an area of cartilage near the end of the long bones, and they enable the bones to lengthen until a child reaches their full height. So growth plates are especially vulnerable to kids when they're still in the growing stages, right? Those coveted bones. And let's face it, each bone, their growth plate closes at different ages, typically by or around age 18. So growth plate fractures can result from a single traumatic event, such as a fall or a car accident or some kind of chronic stress and overuse. So you think about the human body, the muscles stop developing and the bones, everything really stop developing at about 35. That's about your peak athletic time. That's really the end of the road, so to say. That's what the bodies tend to decline a little bit, and performance tends to decline really when athletes hit 30. For whatever it is, I don't know. It's like when you hit 30, it's like the wheels just come off. There's injuries just happen. And that's why sign these long-term deals. Most of the teams will sign the deals to players between the ages of 20 and 28 years of age because they know when they're hitting 29, 30, 31 that they're starting to decline a little bit. It's not that they're not in great shape. It just happens that way. And it doesn't matter who it is. And I mean, unless you're a freak of nature like Nolan Ryan and you're pitching late into your late 40s and you're still bringing it. I mean, think about that. And even Aaron Rodgers playing 42 years of age, and Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement after not playing for a couple, 3 years, whatever the hell it is, and still getting out there and doing it, even though he looked a little bit on the thicker side. But some guys just have that, and some women just have that. And so you got to think about the growth cycle to your muscles and your bones developing, and then when they become vulnerable. Now, we also have the dislocations to think about because those are a big deal. And when bones that come together form a joint, they come separated. You did something and you separated some stuff, right? And football, basketball, whatever, high-impact stuff, I mean, you could be playing baseball, hockey especially. And let's face it, you have significant contact, falling, extreme loads cause most of the dislocations. And really, a dislocated joint typically requires immediate medical treatment, but sometimes the bones move back into place on their own, which is a little bit weird, but usually they got to be popped right back into place. I mean, look, it's pretty darn painful too. In case you've never had one, it hurts. And it's usually the shoulders or elbows, fingers, kneecaps, believe it or not, and anything around the knee. And boy, that's a lot of pain. A lot of people have sprains. We know what a sprained ankle is, for example. They range from that minimal stretch into a partial or complete tear of ligaments. Now you got a real problem. So look, the bands of connective tissue that join at the end of the bone with another to stabilize that joint is really what we're talking about. And sprains are caused by some kind of a trauma, like a fall or a twist or something that really puts the joint out of position. And sprains really can range from that first degree, which is kind of a minimal, like you tweak your ankle, for example. Maybe you stepped on something and your ankle kind of rolls outward a little bit, or all the way down to a complete tear, which is like the third degree. And, well, let's face it, now you're in a lot of pain. Then you have the strains, which most everybody has actually had that. And so those are essentially like those, a twist or a pull or tear of a muscle and the muscle tendon juncture, basically where the muscle and tendon connect, or the tendon itself. Now, a tendon, of course, is just basically a connector to the muscle and bones. But boy, you don't want to tear those things. That's a real problem. And so you'll see sometimes people have a problem with their bicep or whatnot. They have a torn bicep tendon, and you'll see the bicep muscle is out of place. You're like, what the hell happened there? Oh, yeah. I mean, look, athletes who play contact sports, again, get strains, but they can also happen from repeating the same motion again and again, whether it's tennis or golf, or just like I had mentioned with what? Carpal tunnel. So like sprains, strains can range from minor to major too. And look, the most common in the muscle or tendons is between two joints. And tendinitis is something that a lot of people deal, and bursitis. Let's go to tendinitis real quick. And that's basically the inflammation of the tendon and a flexible band of the fibrous tissue that connects the muscles to the bones. A lot of people have this problem. They don't know what the hell it is, but they're in a lot of pain. Often affects their shoulders, elbows, wrists, hips, knees, ankles, whatever. Tendinitis really can be caused by a sudden injury, or, let's face it, usually from carrying out the same motion over and over, kind of like that carpal tunnel thing, as I mentioned. So really, the people that are out there doing the labor, the carpenters, the gardeners, even musicians, they have a lot of this kind of thing. Yeah, believe it or not, musicians, they get it too, right? You're playing guitar, you got your wrist tweaked or something like that, it happens. But golfers and tennis players, a higher risk of tendinitis, and it becomes less flexible as you get older, so you're more likely to get tendinitis as you get older. And then, in fact, bursitis is basically the inflammation of the bursa, which makes things even worse. That's the fluid, whatnot in between the bones and moving parts. Back here in a few minutes, we're going to finish up with that and move on. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. That's 800-298-3173.
Are you or someone you love struggling with an addiction to drugs or alcohol and want to be set free from the chains of addiction? Then call Addiction Helpline America right now to get the help you need. From drug and alcohol addiction to dual diagnosis treatment, we provide a confidential helpline to help people like you get sober and live happy, substance-free lives.
Treatment helped me get my life back. I was so addicted, the only person I could focus on was myself and what I needed. I hit rock bottom and lost everything. Through treatment, I was able to overcome those demons and focus on my family again.
I used until I overdosed and almost died. That was the end of the road for me. After seeking treatment, I now have hope. I learned skills that help me deal with life on life's terms.
800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. That's 800-426-4994.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Thank you, Brian, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas at the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out the store at thesportscircus.com. Lots of great items over there: hats, hoodies, t-shirts, sweatpants, sweat coats, and pillows and blankets, travel mugs, coffee mugs, mouse pads, you name it. They're all there with the clever Sports Circus logo on them. That's the store at thesportscircus.com. And hey, let's face it, these are American-made products. And by the way, the clever Sports Circus logo is on everything. And so, hey, listen, if you mention me, Ringmaster Sal, there's an extra 10% off on your first order. Of course, a shameless plug for the Sports Circus. All right, welcome back to everybody, radio and TV, and I guess everybody on the Mars rover, everybody on Chicago Food Favorites, again, on Facebook. A fun group, talk about your favorite foods, your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes, make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Make sure you join that group. I'm the administrator for it, so don't spam the group. If you spam the group, I'm going to kick your ass off. So don't spam it, whatever you do. There's several thousand people that are members of this. And listen, I keep a real tight grip on it. I want to make sure that people have a good experience and there's no nonsense. I mean, look, of course you could be silly and whatever. And just look, have some fun with it. I mean, it's rather informative too. We have members literally around the world on it. It's good stuff. All right. Speaking of people around the world, people get those sports injuries and whatnot. And we've got some good information here from the National Institute of Arthritis and Musculoskeletal and Skin Diseases. That's right. So we're kind of going over some of the things that it happens to everybody. Now, whether you're an athlete, whether you're not, this program is focused on you hurting yourself, how to prevent it, what it is, what you could possibly look for. And look, we've already gone over bursitis, or actually, we're still on bursitis, tendonitis, strains, sprains, dislocations, fractures, acute, and chronic, and whatnot. I mean, there's a method to the madness here, folks. Let me tell you something. And I want to finish up real quick here with bursitis. In case you don't know, it's really an inflammation of the bursae, technically small fluid-filled sac that acts as a cushion between your bones and other moving parts. I mean, think of your discs, right, in your back, that kind of thing. So again, muscles, tendons, and your skin. Bursitis really can be caused by a one-time event, like some kind of a fall or whatnot. It also can be from those repeated same motions many times over, like throwing a ball, or prolonged pressure, such as kneeling on a hard surface or leaning on your elbows. Yeah, all that stuff happens. I mean, even from pointing and clicking a mouse. Just like I said, for all those people that you're not an athlete, you're like, well, hey, how did I get this Tommy John injury? It was from pointing and clicking. You messed around with your ulnar nerve, that funny bone thing, and it had to be repaired. It's the same thing. Pitchers have the same thing. A lot of athletes have the same thing. So yeah, there's all kinds of common sports injuries out there, whether it's shoulder injuries, right? There's the proverbial rotor cuff, and I've had this one, and I still have problems with it. And in case you don't know what that is, these are really a very common shoulder injury, and the rotor is really a group of 4 muscles and tendons that stabilize the shoulder joint. So the rotator cuff injuries happen when the tendons or the bursae, that whole bursitis thing, near the joint becomes inflamed from overuse or a sudden injury, that acute injury. So they're common in people with jobs that involve what? Overhead motions, like painters or athletes throwing a ball who repeatedly reach upward, such as even tennis players and swimmers when you're reaching out and pulling the water back. Now you also have the impingement. So this happens when the top of the shoulder blade puts pressure on the soft tissue beneath that rotor cuff area when the arm's lifted. And I have this one. Man, I got to tell you, it hurts. I mean, like tendinitis and bursitis can develop, limiting movement and causing a lot of pain. Now, repeated overhead movements, such as those used by swimmers, increase the risk of this impingement. Let me tell you something, folks. It is no picnic. That hurts. Then you also have that instability in the shoulder, too. And really, it happens when the round end of the upper arm bone, basically that golf ball shaped situation, is forced out of its shallow socket, kind of shaped like a golf tee. And so either partially or completely, once the labrum, right, so I have this labrum problem, once the labrum, that's really the tissue around the socket, and the shoulder ligament becomes stretched or torn, the shoulder becomes loose, and dislocations are very, very common. So if you're lucky enough to escape the shoulder injuries, you may end up with the elbow injuries, kind of like the tennis elbow, for example. So when you play tennis or other racket sports, the tendons in the elbow really can develop small tears. They wear down, become inflamed and all that, causing a lot of pain outside the elbow. And look, painters, plumbers, carpenters, and others who repeatedly use their forearm, like even auto mechanics, are also at high risk of getting tennis elbow. So maybe you have this tennis elbow thing, and maybe you're a mechanic. You're like, well, man, my elbow hurts. What the hell's going on? Well, you're twisting wrenches, buddy. And the same idea that when you're twisting and twisting, it's like throwing a slider in baseball, which is the worst thing to do as a pitcher, by the way. Then you're constantly tweaking your elbow, and you're repeatedly challenging your ulnar nerve. You're either going to get that tennis elbow thing or the Tommy John thing. One way or another, you're going to be you're going to be in some pain. I can't say it's a G-rated show, so you know where I'm going with this. But it's going to be very painful. But now, there's not just tennis elbow. There's also golfer's elbow, believe it or not. So look, that also is a type of tendinitis that causes pain in the inner part of the elbow, right? Remember the Tommy John thing? Listen, pain may spread to the forearm and wrist, but golfers and others who repeatedly use their wrists or clench their fingers can develop it. There's the wrist thing again, twisting and tweaking. And now, if in case you don't know, there's even something called Little League elbow. And that's a repetitive growth plate injury to the elbow caused by young people overloading their growth plate by throwing. And that's why the baseball coaches tell you, we don't want you throwing curveballs. We only want you throwing a fastball or a straight change. We don't want you tweaking and twisting your elbows too much because you can cause Little League elbow. So if you have kids, or even if you're a youngster listening to the show, you got to be careful in tweaking your wrist. Try not to throw sliders because sliders are really bad. The most effective pitch, in my opinion, is a straight change. But the hardest thing to do in sports, period, is to hit a fastball. And you can look that one up. Anybody will tell you that one. But think about this. That Little League elbow, the pain is in the inner part of the elbow. And then, of course, I mentioned the ulnar nerve, the ulnar collateral ligament injury. Repeated throwing can cause tears to this ligament of the inner part of the elbow, causing pain and a real decrease in throwing effectiveness. And there is that another aspect of the Tommy John thing. Then, of course, you've got the injuries, the runner's knee, and of course, that's just basically you're getting a tendonitis under your kneecap, and that's no fun. And so, but it's very common for runners, so stay off the hard surfaces if you can, because also you end up with fractures. And they can happen right around the knee, too, around that kneecap, the patella, right? Very, very common. And you got to watch out in case you might fall on your knee and you really mess yourself up. And then again, by overuse, you get all those dislocations. You got to think about that. And a large impact to the knee can cause that kneecap to be forced from that actual groove in the thigh bone, like the femur, right? And push out of alignment. So that could cause continual dislocations, I suppose, of the knee. Then, of course, you have the very common ACLs, MCLs, meniscus tears, and tendon tears. And the ACLs are very common. That's the anterior cruciate ligament. And a lot of people know what those are. A lot of people end up with ACL injuries. It's essentially an overextended or twist of that ligament. I mean, that causes the tear, and usually there's some surgical procedure that will follow it. Unfortunately, that is very common, but they happen pretty often when somebody changes direction suddenly or lands from a jump. I'll tell you where it happens a lot, that what we see but we don't realize when we're watching football games, and now because they use that composite field, they don't use grass anymore. They use some kind of an unnatural surface, right? So it looks green, but it doesn't have any give. And the problem is this: when you're running a post route, for example, or you're a wide receiver and basically you run out 10 steps and then you turn to the left or right, whatever. Well, your foot is the ball of your foot, you're supposed to rotate a little bit, right? And so there's give in the grass, but there's no give in the surface, those hard surfaces, right? Because it's just basically painted AstroTurf, whatever, to be nice and bright green, whatever, but it doesn't give like grass. That's why playing on grass is so much better, because people don't have as many knee injuries. But we see a ton of that in football, especially football, all those ACL injuries, and we have these meniscus tears where the cartilage, it's really, again, that awkward or twist or pivot that happens from that surface, and there's just no give in the surface. So you see those, you see tendon tears, you see a lot of really bad knee injuries because of that surface. So parents, if your kids are playing on that AstroTurf type of a surface, be very aware that you may end up with a child with a knee injury. It's pretty likely that at some point it's going to happen. And now, let's face it, if you're lucky to escape that, well, then there are the proverbial groin pulls and hamstring strains and the shin splints that I mentioned before. And then there are also, of course, the ankle injuries with the ankle sprains. But the Achilles tendonitis is a really big deal. That happens a lot on basketball courts. Somebody steps on your ankle while you're going up, and it's like your ankle stays down, but the rest of your body goes up. And that's a real serious injury. That's like a hyper stretch or a tear or irritation to the tendon connecting the calf muscle to the back of the heel. And usually in sports, when you see somebody get an Achilles injury, most of the time they don't come back the same, or it's just really the end of their career. I mean, it's the largest tendon in the body. And of course you use it when you walk and run and go climbing up and down stairs and jump and stand on the tip of your toes or whatever. So think about the idea of people with Achilles tendonitis. They usually feel pain and stiffness at the back of the heel, especially in the morning. And so it's usually a chronic condition, but that overuse, that could turn into a really big disaster. And that is the last thing that you're looking for. So think about this, folks, and I'll just say this for the doctor side of it. Show me the money! Right, so you're going to want to do some stretching. Otherwise, you're going to end up with, some kind of visit to the doctor or whatever, your provider. And let's face it, if you have sudden pains or swelling or bruising, or you're not able to place weight on your leg or your knee, your ankle or foot, and you can't move your joint normally, or you got to get over to your physician. You got to see him. Look, you might have weakness in an injured leg or injured limb or whatnot. Even your bone is just popping out of joint or whatnot. And look, when you have pain when you play or exercise, see the doctor. Swelling or a dull ache when you rest, see the doctor. Either way, you're going to have some kind of issues. Preventative measures, folks. Make sure that you stretch before and after, and don't overdo it. That's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your ringmaster, Sal. We'll see you in 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Excellent.